Hello and welcome to Lousy Life Lessons with me, Holly Morris, head of Lousy Advice, head of Lousy Life Lessons, head of a lot of lousy things actually that I've done in my time. So this is my podcast. I'm going to do like a bonus episode every now and then, which is a bit more, I'm not going to call it advice. It's not so much advice. It's more something that I've experienced. So I'm thinking maybe it will help you through that way. But I don't want you to think that I've got the answers because babe, I don't know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? But I've just been here for a while. So I feel like maybe there might be a nugget somewhere in this that might help you. For some context to you, I'm Holly. I'm a Z-list influencer, part-time Zumba, and today we're going to be talking about burnout because it is something that I didn't actually quite know what it was until maybe like 6 months ago, and it's something that I've experienced quite a lot. However, a couple of weeks ago, some of you might have seen it, I put a video on Instagram being like, I'm burnt out, goodbye. That sounded really not good. I don't mean that. I meant like I've got to come off social media because I actually have like run out of steam. And yeah, so a couple of weeks ago I experienced a mega burnout and I really was like, oh, I can't see like a light at the end of the tunnel. Like I was just like, this tunnel just seems so long. I don't know how I'm ever going to get to that light bit. And also because I've experienced this a few times, I feel like I do have some nuggets of advice of what to do or how to spot it and stuff. So I've written out some notes so that I don't just bleat on. Firstly, what is burnout? So for me, I was experiencing ADHD burnout. So that is because I am diagnosed with autism and ADHD. The burnout I'm talking about is specific to that. However, I'm pretty sure most people when they experience burnout experience at least some of the same things. Like I think sometimes some of the comments I got, people were like, oh, I feel like this, but I'm not diagnosed with that and that. And I'm like, but it doesn't invalidate your feelings. Like if you feel a certain way, you feel a certain way. You don't need a diagnosis to find certain things difficult. I'm going to read this word for word just because I don't want to get it wrong. Pervasive long-term exhaustion, loss of function and increased difficulties of managing daily tasks. It was for me deep exhaustion, and it wasn't an exhaustion where any rest could make it better. Like I was getting ample sleep, but you still wake up and you're exhausted, or I still couldn't possibly go to the gym. I couldn't lift any of the weights that I normally lift. It was like the exhaustion was like in my bones. So a reduced tolerance to stimuli, so light, sound, touch, increased executive functioning challenges. I feel like this word executive functioning is thrown out around quite a lot, so I thought I'd explain to you what executive functioning is, and that is your brain's ability to control thoughts, emotions and behaviour. Some examples of executive function is working memory, like being able to hold information in your brain, like when you're working on a task. You've got cognitive flexibility, so being able to shift between tasks, being able to stop one thing and move on to another one, being able to really adjust like when something's going on. Then you've got inhibitory control. That is the ability to like suppress inappropriate thoughts or actions. So for example, like when I'm burnt out, my OCD is pretty bad and I find it really hard to block out those thoughts, whereas in day-to-day life I don't really have those thoughts or like actions. Quite often when I'm burnt out, like something small would go wrong and I'd be like, I can't do it. And I'd kind of shout, whereas normally like I would be able to ration with myself and be like, probably not going to scream right now about this tiny little thing. And then you've got planning and organisation, which is kind of self-explanatory, and self-regulation. That is managing emotions and behaviours and like being able to control them in some way. For me, decision making and controlling my emotions were the big ones that just absolutely dissipated when I was burnt out. Even things like Roy would be like, what do you want for dinner? It was like making me see red and making me want to cry. I was like, I can't make a single other decision. I couldn't work out what to have for lunch. I was having Marmite bagels every day because I was like, the thought of coming up with something else again is making me both either like deeply upset or deeply angry. And regulating my emotions or stopping, like I said, like OCD thoughts, catastrophizing thoughts, or being able to like keep any control over my emotions. It was like, I always see TikToks of toddlers and it's like, my toddler was like yelling today because they weren't allowed to eat a fence. Like it feels like I'm back to being a toddler and like got no control over how I react to things, how I feel about things. And it's quite scary because you're a bit like, my rational brain is there and it's like, what's going on here, babe? But the other side's like, sorry, I can't get to you. That logical part of my brain had been like locked away. It's like my brain had been invaded and they locked away down in the dungeon, my like rational brain. And I was like, please, I was trying to reach out to it, but I couldn't get there. Couldn't try any of the keys, wasn't getting in there. I generally felt very helpless and that I couldn't do any of the normal things that get me out of being overwhelmed. So I'm overwhelmed quite a lot, but I have loads of like tools in my arsenal to get out of that. So like meditation or exercise or downtime or whatever else. But I honestly felt like none of those tools that I had, I couldn't even get myself to do do them. And I, again, like felt really helpless. I felt like a little bird in a nest, and I was waiting for the mum bird to come and bring me some worms, but it wasn't coming. It was this deep sense of helplessness. And I was like, I know how to do all these things, but I can't get to that part of my brain. Sorry, there's a fly in my room. I hate flies. Get out. Sorry, sir. I need you to get out immediately. Okay, fly's gone. So a lot of the feelings are quite similar to those of depression and anxiety, but I think the main difference is it's situational. I knew that I wasn't going to feel like that forever. I knew I didn't just feel like that as a person. I knew that it was because a load of things had added up, and then I'd reached my tipping point. Luckily, like rationally deep down in that locked away place, I knew that it wasn't going to feel like it was going to go on forever. But in the moment, because you've got no control of your emotions and nothing's being regulated in your brain, you feel like that's just you. Like I felt like, no, life just is too much. Everything is too much. It's never going to get better. I'm never going to feel happy again. I'm here to tell you I was in that 2 weeks ago, and I feel relatively content now. Like I still feel stressed about things, and I still feel a little bit like I'm not 100%, but I am very much seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and I know it's there, and I know it's all temporary. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how did I get into this situation so I can avoid it again. Hopefully you can avoid it again, or you can take some comfort in knowing that maybe all these things have added up in your life. One key thing I've realised since getting my diagnoses or being me as a person is I never think things are as bad as they actually are. Like now I recall back things about my anxiety, my panic attacks, my emetophobia when I was younger. I'm like, oh God, that would have been really scary for a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old. At the time I was a bit like, no, this isn't that bad. Or like a lot of people report when they get diagnosed with autism, they're like, no, I don't think I am, because I don't find life that hard. But then when you actually go through all the things that you've been through, you are like, oh, actually, yeah, that is pretty hard for someone to go through. So yeah, this is one of those things that if you're like that, I bet that you're a bit like, no, come on, I'm being dramatic. Anyway, here are the things that led me to burnout. Right, so the first one is what I've realised that I do is trying to not be autistic or ADHD. And in my day-to-day life, I'm very lucky that this is my job in making content. So I do get this element of freedom to be me and to work the way I like to work. I can work from bed. I can work weird hours. Like I do have flexibility that I'm not stuck kind of in an office on someone else's terms. That helps me a lot. However, there's a lot of behind the scenes part of this job that does involve a lot of bits where I do feel like I need to mask just to kind of get myself into the places that I want to be. So I've written down some of the things that I felt like I had to do. Communication, which I'm sure all of you obviously have at work. Basically like communicating with brands, with freelancers, with my accountant, with management. That was taking producers of the podcast, designers. That I was struggling with quite a lot, working out whether my tone was right or not, working out whether I'd been polite enough, working out whether I was being professional enough. The amount of like back and forthing my actions was leading me to feel very tired out from tasks that I imagined from the surface seemed quite simple. Like answering an email, I'd be like asking ChatGPT, like, can you word this in a way that sounds friendly but nice but kind? Then I'd be reviewing it 7 times. Then I'd be showing it to Rory. Then I'd send it. Then I'd worry until they responded. Then I'd be double checking their response to see if I thought there was a sign they might be annoyed at me. Yeah, that's something I really need to work on. This is what I'm saying about not being so hard on yourself. Like other people, I didn't realize this, like are not doing all those things. Like something like sending an email, people are giving 20% effort to, but for me to get to look like it's 20%, it's taking 80%. And that is what's giving me a bit of reassurance in letting myself be kinder to myself. Again, yeah, communication often isn't clear. Feedback is often subjective, and I'm often being asked to do things that's got no adjustments for ADHD or autism. Oh, that's another thing as well, like quite often with the opportunities. So like when you're a creator, opportunities feel like they don't come up. But it's probably a little bit with you in every job. Like, you know, when these opportunities come up and you know you're not suitable for them and they're going to make you feel like shit, but you still do them because you're like, oh, if I don't say yes, like someone else is going to take my position. And I do want to get there in life, and I do want to be able to do this and do that. I've realised, like, you know, sometimes you've got to think about the cost these things are creating for you mentally. And another thing I've realised, that in this job you get so many opportunities, but nothing feels as good. No deal, no amount of money you're going to make, no experience is as good as feeling calm in your mind. And that is something that I'm really now moving forward with in the way that I decide what I'm going to do. Also, I was masking heavily at events and socials. I feel like it ends up in this circle of like, you're tired out, but then you're so conscious of looking tired out and someone like catching you out that you then mask heavier. Like when I'm exhausted, I actually mask heavier because I'm having to try so hard to try and seem upbeat. But that was hard. I had a lot of events and social things I was really struggling at. And it's also like, people might say, well, just don't mask, just be you. But like, it's it's a survival mechanism. You can't help it. It's like, panic attacks, your body goes into fight or flight and you're like, babe, we're sat in bed, like nothing's coming for us. It's the same thing with masking, like it just comes out. It's a survival tactic. Also, I had lots of moving around, lots of being out of routine. So like Rory went away a few times, so I stayed at my parents', but like packing all my stuff, moving somewhere else. I was on holiday again. I find holidays really quite stressful. Also, I've been experiencing, sorry if this sounds like I'm really just talking about myself, but I just think it's easier to explain it from my personal experience because you might then see a nugget of something in you. But yeah, I get a bit worried. This sounds a bit self-indulgent. Anyway, nothing since getting my autism diagnosis, I've realised I've been having a lot of skill regression. So I got my diagnosis in March and I honestly feel like my whole life has just done like a 180. Like I'm relieved in some ways, but I'm also like, oh my God, everything that I've learned and everything I've learned as a survival tactic and masking, I'm like, that isn't actually me. That's just something I've managed to put on. So it's trying to work out what to do. Anyway, now I understand. Let me read this out so I say it properly. So since getting my diagnosis and the skill regression, I now understand why I used to have so many full-blown panic attacks, right, from being in situations. So quite often, if I went on a big night out, whatever, I'd come back and have a panic attack. Or if I'd had a really busy weekend, I'd have a panic attack. If I had a really busy time at work, panic attacks. Now, I don't get as many panic attacks because I realised that they were actually, like, the pain a situation causes me doesn't come out of the time. Like quite a lot of the time, I'm like, what? Of course I go to the pub for 5 hours, like whatever. I didn't realise that actually the pain doesn't happen then, it happens afterwards. Because I've realised situations that make me feel anxious or the situations that are not that suitable to me, I find it really hard now to put myself back in them. So like things like I said, like going up to London and sitting in a pub for 5 hours, like now, thought of doing that, I have to really psych myself up to go. And I really, when I'm there, I'm like, these sounds are too loud and this is too stressful and blah, blah, blah. And it's because I'm aware now, whereas before I wasn't. Since this skill regression, I've really struggled with WhatsApp and like communication with friends. I've realised now that sometimes when I get messages, I can feel like sometimes if I get a WhatsApp message, it's just a friend being like, hey, we haven't caught up in ages, how are you? I can feel this like heat rising from my chest to my face because I'm so stressed out that I've got to be like chatting over text. And I think the main part is because I feel like I'm always going to say the wrong thing, or the thing I'm going to say is me wrong, or like I'm going to make a sarcastic joke and I'm going to think it's funny, but they're going to be like, that's actually quite rude, or I don't know how sensitive to go. I also like the rules of like how many questions I ask versus how many questions they ask. I can't seem to get the social cues right, particularly over WhatsApp. And I think my tone of voice is always coming across wrong, or I'm having to really go over the top to not sound blunt, even though I am quite blunt over text. So this round of burnout, WhatsApp has felt incredibly hard. Socialising ended up feeling like a demand. It ended up that like WhatsApping and socialising became part of the job. I'm sure you get it as well with like emails, or like if you're like customer facing, like being friendly at work, it's hard to then in the evening then be friendly with friends over text. Like I've realised I'd be much better off with a landline because otherwise it just feels like there's no break from demands or me having to read social cues. Like it's just all day. So yeah. Also a lack of downtime. I was really busy and I felt like there wasn't time for things that bring me a lot of joy. Sport brings me so much joy and actual time to switch off, like tennis, golf, paddle, pickleball. And I used to play tennis like 3 times a week, but then work got busy. So I left the David Lloyd and I was like, I'm not going to play. But actually that was such an error because actually that hour and a half I was playing tennis was actually meaning that I had more to give on the other hours I was working. So that's another thing. I just had let go of all my activities. Like I'd just taken up golf, sacked that off. So yeah, basically all I was doing was either socialising, working, or damage controlling. There was no joy. Also, I had some grief. Sorry if you just held me belch then, that's disgusting. Lost my nan last February, and basically I'm not going to get too much into that. I can talk about that grief in another video if you like, but I kind of had been grieving her really when she was still alive for like the last couple of years because she was just so different and so old, and it was so sad because she was such a strong character in my life, like her, my mum, me. There's like a red string attaching us. Oh, it makes me emotional thinking about her. So yeah, I really struggled before she passed seeing her because it felt awkward because it felt like part of her had gone and I just couldn't bear that feeling. So I kind of, when she actually passed away, it was like the initial bit with the shock was awful, but then it was kind of like there was a bit of relief because I was like, I've been grieving her but still seeing her for like couple of years, and I always felt guilty about the amount I saw her. Whatever. Anyway, that was the first like proper big death, like touch wood, that had really like affected me. And I kind of thought, well, you know, that's happened, she's died, back to work, get on with it. But I actually think like a year on is now where it's like affecting me, and like I'm thinking about it a lot, because I think my brain literally shut it down when it happened. My brain just went into survival mode and was like, right, that's the end, goodbye. Whereas now my brain's a bit like, oh, that is quite sad. So I think that added in. Another one, the pressure of summer. I always think, oh yeah, oh my God, I love summer. It gets to summer and the pressure of it's too much. Like it being sunny, I'm like, oh my God, I can't play Sims. I've got to be out there. Or like everyone on Instagram's doing all these crazy things. And I'm like, you loser, Holly, what are you doing? I've actually realised, again, I'm not the same as other people. So no wonder. Summer to me just feels like one big bit of pressure. I'm much better in the anticipatory months, like seasons, like autumn with the anticipation of like Christmas and stuff, but it's not actually happening, or spring with the anticipation of joy and sun and being out but not actually doing it. But the pressure of it was adding up because there was always a plan happening. So yeah, I'm telling you mine so you can compare. So I had a big project, I had big changes, I was out of routine, I had grief and the pressure of summer. So maybe something in there will click in your head of like, oh, actually, do you know what? I can give myself a bit of leeway, because as much as I bet you like all those things to me together will feel small, but when I look at that as a whole, I'm like, well, no wonder. What did burnout actually look like for me? If I'm brutally honest, what did it look like? So I gradually couldn't handle more and more things. So it would start off, I couldn't handle certain noises. Then it was like feelings, and it was like the vibration. I suddenly felt like I've got a fan in my room. I thought I could feel the vibration of the fan on the floor in me in bed. That was insane. Clothes, I couldn't handle sports bras, labels in sports bras. I couldn't handle bras. I couldn't handle thongs. Temperatures, tastes, like my palate went down to like, I only wanted the 4 meals that I eat most of the time. Yeah, I wanted to eat very basic meals. My OCD and emetophobia were much worse. So every evening I was feeling anxious, that I felt unwell. And my OCD was really bad. I can talk again, if there's anything I talk about in this episode that you want a detailed episode on, I will happily do it. OCD I've had since I was really little. Like I feel so sad for little me, she didn't know, but like before it would be like, oh, I've got to finish writing this sentence before my teacher starts talking again at school, otherwise someone in my family is going to die or I'm going to be sick. And then as I've got older, it's changed to different things. Sometimes I get really horrific thoughts, like the things that I think are the worst thing in the world, my brain will create, and then I have this compulsion to be honest and to tell Rory them. Also I would get OCD, I've got to do this by this, or I've got to do this, or I've got to clap 5 times, like things like that, or something bad's going to happen. But also sometimes I'd think, if I think about this too much, I'm going to manifest it about horrible things. I remember when I was at school, like when I was 5, I remember being sat on the toilet and I thought you got pregnant by wishing for it. And I remember even at that age, my brain antagonizing me, being like, I wish I was pregnant. And I was like, no, I don't, I'm 5, I've got maths, I can't have a child. Anxiety was sitting in my chest and my throat, which when you've got emetophobia is bad, you hate that feeling. And I couldn't rationalize with myself that it was anxiety. I was like, no, must be something wrong with me. I couldn't do things that helped me. I couldn't get myself to meditate. I couldn't get myself to exercise. I couldn't get myself to journal. I couldn't do any of the things that I knew helped me. And like, I am someone that now has got quite good discipline at like just forcing myself to do those things. I honestly couldn't. Like, I get it when people are depressed and they say they can't clean their teeth. I get it. I could not help myself at all. So yeah, basically socializing felt like a massive demand. And rather than that making me retreat, which it would when I was younger, and I'd just be like, sorry, my mum says I can't go, I couldn't honestly even bear the thought of sending a message saying I couldn't go. So I would go and just put myself in the fire because I was so exhausted. I couldn't come up with a way to get out of it. I wasn't excited for anything. There was no excitement, not even with launching the podcast, which I feel sad about now. Now, luckily, I feel really pleased with it. But things that bring me joy just didn't. Nothing was bringing me joy other than playing Sims. Couldn't make conversation. Eye contact as well felt too much. Like when I was with Rory, like in the evenings, I would just eat my dinner, we'd watch TV. I did not want to talk. I couldn't even face like talking to people on my road, like walking past. Like if I saw someone about to leave their house, I'd like get back in my door. If someone knocked on the door, it would stress me out. I remember at one point, I couldn't even even say thank you to someone when I was driving. I thought even that felt like too much contact. I just wanted to eat shit and sit about, which are obviously the worst things when you're feeling like that. I felt like I wasn't good enough for anything. I felt like I was a phony in my job. And I had resentment at myself for being like that. But I also resented everyone else for being fine. The final moment was I had 2 meltdowns that I completely shut down. You just couldn't get through to me. Like I was just like hysterically crying and stroppy. It was honestly like I was like 8 years old. So yeah, all that good stuff. Now we're getting to the better bit. The emergency stop. This is where it got to a point and I was like, okay, something needs to change. I got to therapy and I was like, babe, the world's falling apart. And she was like, okay, let's make a plan. So me and her came up with a plan that would work for me and my job. So I had to accept there was going to be some pain for there to be some gain. And also she made me more compassionate with myself. And she was like, stop telling yourself that you're punishing yourself with rest. Because I was like, I can't possibly take a day off posting because the algorithm's going to hate me and then my job's going to fall apart. Then I'm going to have to go back to my old 9 to 5, which I hated and I can't do it. Also, sorry, that's not me saying 9 to 5s are bad. I'm saying the field of work I was in was not suitable for my brain. I was saying to myself it was a punishment. I was going to have to take time off and it was going to ruin my career. But she was like, no, why don't you see it as like, you've worked so hard to get to this point that you're actually going to treat yourself to some time off to recharge, to go again. So that helped me. I also went off WhatsApp for a week. Oh my God, that was so good. I am now thinking I'm going to do something about WhatsApp because it does just fill me with dread. So I changed my picture to this here saying, hello, I'm burnt out. I'm not here. If you need me, I'll be back next week. And I put my family group chat on my work phone so that I could still be talking to my family. Told like a few people that talk to me quite a lot, like I'm going by. And then I had no social media for about a week. So that was TikTok and Instagram. I still had YouTube because that doesn't normally make me feel that shit. And I had LinkedIn, I had Substack, and I just went on those. I also got a subscription to the New York Mag, which is quite good. And you can scroll that. So I was reading articles instead. And Substack's got brilliant articles. So I still got the like feeling of like scrolling, but it wasn't anything else to get really engrossed in. Like LinkedIn, like there's only so many times you can see someone saying congrats for getting their new role. Do you know what I mean? I then had to rest without guilt. I really had to say to myself, if you want to be able to perform like you can do, you need to relax. Like I had to say to myself, like I had to treat myself like a football player, being like, you know, sometimes you need to give your legs a rest. I need to give my brain a rest. I wrote out a list. I had a list of things that were nice to do, then a list of things that were productive, nice things to do, and then a have to do. Yeah, so I told myself, like, if I'd broken my leg, I'd rest, and I'd broken my brain. So I was like, babe, we need to rest it. On like the nice things to do, I'd bought myself a paint by numbers. I had a puzzle. What else did I put on my nice to-do list? I had like doing some drawing, doing a scrapbook, playing Stardew Valley, playing on my Nintendo Switch, playing on The Sims, things that were in no way productive and were just fun and nice. Then I had productive, nice things to do because I know my brain likes to be productive. So it was things like I was doing this cartoon drawing for my auntie, so I put on that on there, sorting out my clothes drawers, putting things on Vinted. And then what I did is I'd break up my day and put bits of each of those things in that day. I couldn't just do all nice things, as I knew my brain would be like, we need to do something that's worthwhile. But then I could fill it with like nice productive things. And now I've made 460 quid on Vinted. So good. Then I started small with bringing my behaviours back in that made me feel better. So I did a 5-minute meditation. I also, most days, I can do a video on my morning routine, but most days I do 10 minutes of meditation, then I write 3 pages in my journal. It feels wanky and it is long, but like I just have to tell myself it is benefiting me. So the meditation, I use Headspace and it's really, really good. I don't work with them. They don't know me from Adam, but if I was you and you want to do one little thing to make yourself feel better, start doing that. Get up 10 minutes earlier. It's all guided, so you don't really have to think. They'll tell you what to do. And I did a like 6-week course. They've got courses on there and I did the anxiety course, and that course has changed my life. I can't believe it. I cannot believe something like Headspace could do that, but it has changed the way I reframe anxiety in my head. I'd highly recommend that. I think you can get a 30-day free trial on there. I don't know how, but I'm pretty sure you can. Started off doing small meditations and I then would write 1 page in the morning. So I wouldn't beat myself up and be like, you've got to do the full shebang. I'd be like, babe, let's just start small. And that meant I was being consistent. If I'd gone back into my proper routine, my body would have been like, we can't do this here. Same with exercise. Again, I didn't go straight into doing a run or going to the weight training or whatever. I just did loads of walks. And I did my YouTube. I've got this YouTube video. I love doing this dance workout. If you type in like noughties and 90s dance workout, it will come up. Look at what it's called. It's called 90s/2000s Throwback Dance Workout Volume 3 of 6 by Dance with Dre. So good. And then I journaled about what I wanted from life and what I can strip back to get that. So I was like, Holly, what is actually important to you? And I wrote out the things that were important to me. And then I've like from that then made a list of things that like are going to get me there. Like I don't care about having loads of cash or being really flashy or having designer stuff or going on loads of fancy holidays. I care about having a nice little life, having a nice little group of friends and playing sport. So I was like, okay, well then what are you going to sack off and what are you going to do to get to that place? Yeah. Anyway, then I had therapy the following week after that like crisis week, and I was talking about the fact that I have to let other people manage their own emotions, not me. Sometimes I might let someone down and that's fine. So for example, sometimes if I want to cancel a plan, I never think if someone cancels a plan with me, oh my God, I can't believe it. But I feel like everyone thinks that about me. But I need to, like, I am not like other people. I can't be the person that I've tried to make out that I can be for years and years. And that's just the reality. So I need to sometimes let myself let people down. Like if I'm really feeling like the world is collapsing, I should not still be going to those drinks. Do you know what I mean? So, and I worry so much about like letting people down and how it makes them feel. And I know there is still, if you want a village, you've got to be a villager. And I completely agree with that. But you also do have to look after yourself sometimes. And yeah, that's what I found I wasn't doing at all, is I was just saying yes to everything because I didn't want to let anyone down or anyone to feel like they weren't important to me. But actually I couldn't handle having like 3 plans a week. Also, like sometimes I might let someone down that I don't reply to a WhatsApp, whereas I think that they're thinking, oh my God, Holly's so rude. Why didn't you reply? But I'm like, that's on them. If they think me not replying to that is rude, that is on them, Holly. You cannot absorb every single person, the fact that you can't reply to them all. Also coming up with a plan for WhatsApp. At the minute, I'm practicing not having to get back to people straight away. Yeah, I'm practicing. All because someone sent me a message, not being like, I don't have to now end up in a back and forth. Like, I can reply to them on my own time. That doesn't mean that I'm an arsehole. I still need to come up with a solution. I think I'm going to do that. I don't use my phone after 6 p.m. and people then will get used to me not being on there to reply to things. And I'm going to start trying to call my friends more and say to them, I just can't do back and forth on WhatsApp, sorry. Another thing I did, lots of safe people and spaces. So I had a lot of time at home in bed, playing Sims, sat next to Rory or being with my mum and dad. And I removed all non-essential stuff. So all plans that I had in those emergency weeks, I had to get rid of. Even like at the end, I was like, oh, I feel like a bit better. I was like, no, you're not actually there yet. You need to still, it's a bit like, if like you went for a run at the end of a flu and you're like, that was an error. So yeah. So my final bit, sorry if I've been bleating on. Here are some lessons that I've learned to not get myself back in that situation and to live in this world in a way that is going to work for me, rather than me having this constant cycle of like being able to do things for a week and then being burnt out for the next 2. Not to say yes to things straight away. When someone says, oh, do you want to do this? Not just blindly saying yes to please them and to make sure that I keep up in my social status of being fun or being easy or being free. Not saying yes straight away. Thinking about what is actually going to work within what I have the capacity for, and then saying it, because then you don't have to let someone down if you've not said yes. Do you know what I mean? Like actually thinking about the situation, looking at my week on my calendar, looking at what I've got coming up, looking at where I'm going to be in my menstrual cycle, like actually thinking about the plan before I just blindly say yes to get someone's approval. Next, map out my calendar the month before and see where the gaps are. So before, again, I agree to every plan, seeing what my weeks are like and when there is space and when there isn't. My friend Molly's got this great thing that she does, which each month she blocks out a weekend in the calendar that is for being at home. So she knows she's got that circuit break, which I've never thought of before. So that's really useful as well. Next, I have to practice things that feel hard now so they feel easier in the future, like people pleasing. So like, you do CBT, or I don't know if you've done it, but I did CBT for my emetophobia and didn't really work. But it's basically like you come up with little tasks to try and make you like desensitize. So I'd be like touching raw chicken. I've realized it's not just physical things you have to do that with, it's also like people pleasing things as well. So I have to practice, for example, I'm going away with Rory and some of his family. I have to practice not filling every silence because that's exhausting, but it's also not my job. But sitting with the discomfort of there being a silence, or if I want to just read my book and not talk to people, like doing that and not thinking, oh, but they probably want me to talk to them. Like or like if there's an email and I'm not happy with it, I don't have to reply being like, thank you, but would you mind just doing this, loads of exclamation marks? I can just talk how I want to talk. I need to practice being actual me. And the more I do it, it feels horrible at the minute, but in the long term, it will benefit me. Next, I'm not built for this world, so I need to make my own adjustments. For example, like Rory working with me. Like me and Rory now work together full time on my content. So of the money we make from the podcast, my branders and stuff, that's our full-time wage. Obviously, that is a big cut to what we both earned before, but it means that we can both have a more enjoyable life. So it's things like that, like working out what is actually important to you. Social media use, so now I've really cut that down. I'm not going on my phone every time I'm bored. I only let myself go on it like in the morning at like 9, around lunchtime, in the evening, and then it goes off in the evening. And my WhatsApp use as well. I cannot be ashamed of being me. Like, I'm not nasty, all because when I was 11, people bullied me for being different. That's because they were children and they didn't understand differences. Like I'm not that, like no one is the same as that. And Like the things, the fact that I'm a bit blunt or a bit this or a bit that, that is just me. I'm not horrible. So you've got to be on your own team. Exercise and being outside is crucial. That's something I've realised. So meditation is crucial. Practicing and being able to clear your brain means that when you have got those horrible thoughts coming in, you've got more chance to let them dissipate and not interact with them. Telling myself I'm not running out of time. This is a whole other video, but I feel being 31, it feels like time's running out. And if I want to become a radio presenter or do anything, like I'm not there yet and I'm running out of time, but that just makes you panic and makes you more stressed and not produce good work. So again, telling myself there's all the time in the world. Find the places I want to be. So for example, like when it comes to socializing, thinking, okay, I like paddle, I like playing paddle. So when my friend says, do you want to go to the pub and do this? Being like, no, but do you want to do this? Coming up with where I do want to be and then being able to bring my village there. And then also boredom is important. Oh my God, it was nice feeling a sense of boredom when I wasn't on social media, because it made me go and do things that were fulfilling, or it made me try new things, or it made me a bit more curious. My final point, and then I'm going to love you and leave you, is that burnout isn't failure. It's just a signal that you need to slow down. You've not failed because you've burnt out. You've just been pushing hard, and I'm sure you've actually been trying really hard. Slow the fuck down, okay? And get back in the game, and people are still going to love you because I'm sure you are lovely. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed that. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you give it a like or subscribe, and if you could comment and let me know if you like these ones, because then I can do more of them, or if you'd rather vlogs or you'd rather stick to the other podcast, that's also absolutely fine, but I'm just trying to work out whether these are useful or not. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. And I really hope that if you're burnt out, you feel much better soon. I hope you can see me now and see that you will get out of it. This isn't going to last forever. And I think you're being really brave. So yeah, love you.